all independent artists from around the world. I don't care where you from. DM the GOAT, get you a motherfucking murdered out verse.
Red rose, white ceiling. Red rose, white ceiling.
Red rose, white ceiling.
Red rose, white ceiling. I ain't freestyling in a minute. Let me polish my skills off. Let me see what I can come up with. Let me see. Let's check it. Look, red rose, white ceiling. I'm in that red rose, white ceiling. We're gonna shoot you some topics. You freestyle. Your first topic is the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. I'll be rocking my Kobe's. I'll be in a red rose, white.
I'm broke. I don't have a dime.
Lobbies and gentlegrams, the doctor's advocate got sued for harassment causing abandonment of a massive stack of chips. 7 million damages was granted quick to a lady on the game's game show. And now that his bank's low, he's resorted to strange roles like asking underground artists to pay low rates for 8 bars to make their fame grow. On the surface, this seems like a great go for low-known artists to get a stage shown on global levels. But behind closed doors, this might be a deal with the devil. A scam that'll melt you instead of propel you, and it points to a long history of the game possibly scamming his fans. So let's examine the facts, but first a massive attack on the like and subscribe buttons is demanded from Rap-aholics.
I study
Rap-aholics
for a living.
Now, lobbies and gentlegrams, drop a like and subscribe just for the simple fact that I did that entire intro. Whether you love them or hate the rhyming, that one was done in one take, and I'm very out of breath, alright? So, show me some love, alright? And let's also show the game some love. Whether you love or hate my rhymes, whether you love or hate the game, you have to admit, the game is an absolute legend. From jumping in the game with a classic off the rip, the documentary, putting the West Coast back on the map at a time when it felt like there was low West Coast representation within the mainstream. And I mean, this man on his debut album had features from 50 to Snoop to Eminem, and production from Kanye to Dr. Dre. All in all, a buffet of hip-hop excellence, propelling the game to become the forefront runner of G-Unit.
Red rose, white ceiling.
But it wouldn't be long before the game and 50 started beefing, and the game had to take on the entirety of G-Unit by himself with his campaign GU Not. And suddenly the white ceiling of his red rose started looking cloudy. Yeah, the game was still signed to Aftermath, but he turned on Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, the entire conglomerate. An artist whose debut was what it was due to the star-studded track list and production credits was now standing on his own. But somehow he arguably made that work even better on his second album, The Doctor's Advocate.
I study
Red rose, white ceiling.
for a living.
And amidst a list of controversies, he still remained an artist that was always reliable to give his fans a great body of work every couple years, which made it easier to turn a blind eye to the antics and still enjoy the incredible music. From the documentary 2 to Jesus Piece, the Red Album, the game has a heavy catalog. There's no denying that, but that would kind of come to a halt in around 2015. After that album I listed you guys, the documentary 2, the output of music started slowing down, but the frequency and intensity of the antics continued to escalate.
Too much 50 Cent, not enough West Coast rap. 50 Cent.
JC! I said JC! You owe that. You owe that.
I will f*** thug up.
When have you ever heard an Eminem song in the club? I don't hear Eminem in the streets. I'm just a better rapper.
Put it into perspective, things got so bad that the last video I made about the game, we were trying to figure out if he lost his house and his record label in court. We're going to revisit that, but that might play a role into why the game right now is being accused of potentially scamming up-and-coming artists. He dropped this clip on his Instagram the other day.
Hey, check it out. All independent artists from around the world. I don't care where you from. DM the GOAT, get you a motherfucking murdered out verse. ASAP, not playing. Fuck with all them motherfucking weird ass blogs saying all these hating niggas with my name in their mouth saying every day, if you pay for a verse, that bitch getting murdered, you gonna get it back ASAP. And niggas be mad. Niggas don't want to see y'all independent artists. They don't want to see y'all come up. That's why niggas don't never reach down and grab up and coming artists and independent artists and do shit for them. Niggas want y'all to stay in the mud. You know what I'm saying? I was there. I've been an underground artist. I sold my motherfucking mixtape. I sold my demo. I slept in my car. I did everything I had to do to get on. So me, I'm looking out for independent artists, and I ain't gonna never stop that shit. These other niggas, they don't want to reach down and pull y'all out the mud. They want y'all to stay down there, my nigga. Niggas selfish, but me, I got you. Hit me.
And like I said in the intro, on the surface, this seems like a great opportunity for up-and-coming artists to get a look that they never have before. But once we dissect this situation a little deeper, you'll see that the intentions behind this may not be the best, and there may in fact be companies behind the scenes helping various artists, not just the game, scam their fans. Yes, really scam their fans, and this has been going on for years at this point. Let me explain how one of these scams works. So way back in 2020, there was a company by the name of The Block 365 that was working with several notable artists. Fat Joe, Benny the Butcher, Jadakiss, Dave East. And it's funny because all these artists aside from Benny the Butcher are now doing podcasting as their main source of income above rapping. So this company, The Block 365, they were partnering with all these artists amongst some others, and they were offering independent rappers mixtape placements for $500 to $650 per slot. This is, keep in mind, we're talking mixtapes in 2020, long after the days of DatPiff, My Mixtapes, all that. So how does this work, and is this a scam? Well, Brian Suzuki, the founder of Audiomack, he broke it down really well. Let's take a look here. So basically, these artists that partner up with the mixtape company, they'd make a post on their Instagram account where they would ask their followers to tag underground artists who are spitting fire, who they should be on the lookout for. As you could see, Joey Crack was doing this back in June of 2020. And at surface level, again, all this stuff seems kosher. Pretty good opportunity if an up-and-comer gets tagged in one of these posts, because you know Fat Joe or any of these other artists who do these posts might be on the lookout for you. But this is where that company, The Block 365, jumps in. All the artists who are tagged in these social media posts, they'll get a DM from the artist that made the post. As you can see, Fat Joe, he makes the post saying, hey, tag an up-and-coming artist that I should know about. Then that up-and-coming artist who gets tagged, they get a message from Fat Joe that looks something like this. I see you, brother. I'm working with The Block 365 to drop a series of mixtapes. You ready to get that work and push your music? Let's lock it in. It's just $650 a slot. And you could see here, it's not just Fat Joe, right? It's Jadakiss, who Fat Joe now has a podcast with. It's Dave East, 147 Cowboy. And you could see these are very automated messages, right? Like the person on the other end, the up-and-coming artist who Cowboy is talking to, he's saying like, do you like my beats that I sent you? And Cowboy is just saying like, I see the grind, you want to lock in? Like he's not even responding to what the artist is actually asking. This is a telltale sign that it's not actually Cowboy that's behind this Instagram account talking to this person, right? It's a company hired to do outreach on these artists' account to up-and-coming artists and try to sell them these mixtape placements. But of course, you know, as a young artist who has probably looked up to a lot of these guys, Jadakiss especially, you're not thinking like, oh yeah, these rappers of all people are trying to scam me, right? Like I've gotten scam messages before, but not from someone with, you know, millions of followers on Instagram. And you could see these artists get on Twitter and they're like celebrating the fact that they got DMs from a Benny the Butcher or Dave East, Jadakiss, Fat Joe. It's happening all across the board. So what is the end goal, right? You're paying anywhere from $500 to $650 for a mixtape placement. If you're an artist, what does that mean for you? Well, on June 20th, 2020, The Block 365, that company that was pairing up with all these artists, doing the outreach on their Instagram accounts to these up-and-comers, they actually ended up posting a mixtape, Rap Behind Bars Volume 7, which was presented by Benny the Butcher. It wasn't on Benny's Spotify or his Apple Music or even his SoundCloud. It was posted on The Block SoundCloud and some other small websites. Now, there's 37 different songs on this mixtape, so already your song is, you know, buried amongst a list of random other underground artist music. The song with the highest amount of plays has around 1,400 plays. Meanwhile, the average song gets around 60 plays on SoundCloud. So you're spending that $650 to be on a mixtape that's quote-unquote presented by Benny the Butcher. To get 60 plays, is he at least promoting your song? Well, not exactly. According to Brian Z, the most Benny did was actually post the mixtape itself, not even the individual songs, onto his Instagram page. Nothing more, nothing less. No link in bio or anything. So as you can see here, this company, The Block 365, that's, you know, doing these different mixtapes, they're not necessarily scamming up-and-coming artists, right? Because you're paying that $600 knowing what you're getting. You're getting a mixtape placement. But at the end of the day, they're selling this dream behind these major rap stars, right? Benny the Butcher, Jadakiss, etc. You're not actually getting a seat next to these major artists, right? They're not doing any real promo to push your music after you pay for it. And you could see that by the amount of streams, right? Each song had an average of 60 streams per song. Crazy. So you're paying $600 for 60 streams, essentially. Now, notice I didn't mention the game in this list of artists that were working with this company doing these mixtape placements, right? But I did that for a reason, because the game situation actually might be a lot worse. And I shouldn't say situation, I should say situations. There are various examples of this weird stuff where the game is, requesting to collaborate with younger artists for a discounted fee, and things just end up going left. And before we get to those examples, we have to ask the question, why would the game or any other rapper or artist feel the need to do something like this, right? For a measly $500 to $600. I mean, at this point, Fat Joe and Jadakiss, all they gotta do is go yap for an hour and a half on their podcast. They'll easily be making 10 times that for just one podcast episode. And if you notice, since they started their podcast, you haven't seen Fat Joe and Jadakiss doing this type of stuff. But the game doesn't have a podcast. So what's the reason behind the game continuously doing this with up-and-coming artists? Well, in order to understand that, we gotta understand the doozy of the situation that the game has been involved in over the last 10 years, which, like I said before, it resulted in such a dire situation to the point where the last video I did about the game, we were actually trying to unpack whether or not he lost his house in court. How can that even happen, you might ask? Well, we gotta take it all the way back. In August of 2015, a brand new show premiered on VH1 titled She's Got Game. The show was a game dating show centered around the game, where his friends in the industry brought forth contestants who would fight for the game's love. It was kind of like The Bachelor meets Love and Hip Hop.
I lost the best thing that ever happened to me, but now I think I'm ready to find that special someone. And I'm gonna give her 100% of everything that I got.
Game is looking for love.
You're gonna step into my life and take this journey.
And he's bringing 10 lucky ladies along for the ride. She's Got Game. New series premieres Monday, August 10th at 9.
And if you thought this was hilariously ridiculous, so did I. But at least this game show kind of depicted the game in the driver's seat. The last game show that the game was on was before he was the game. He was known as JT, but they probably should have called him SB for Sad Boy, because boy is this sad.
I want to be with my girl all day, every day.
I can't be with him 24/7. I'm sorry.
Sadida couldn't keep a promise if her life depended on it.
So what?
I can't get no loving in public.
No affection.
No holding
Because
hands,
it seems
no
like
kiss,
you always
no...
gotta.
But let's focus on 2015, where the game has a little more confidence, maybe too much confidence, and he's no longer telling his woman to be a better girlfriend. Instead, women are fighting each other to be his girlfriend. That's the premise of the show. And one of these women, one of the contestants, she went by the name Priscilla Rainey. Now remember this name, because the game was about to make it rainy all over her bank account very shortly. Now, before Priscilla Rainey had a reign over the game's assets, she had a reign of terror over this game show. Now, she would go on later to say that the entire show was scripted, even claiming she had been in a 7-year relationship that was on pause just so she could pretend to fight over the game's heart. It was all for the bag, but she was depicted on the show as the quote-unquote fire starter.
What about you, fire starter? You good?
I'm good. No fire started today.
So it sounds to me like they're trying to trash me in front of JCon to make me look like a fire starter. You know what? Let's go.
And as with every reality TV show, of course, there's a bunch of pent-up drama, and the game is right in the middle of it, trying to figure out which one of these lovely actresses he will decide to make his fake girlfriend by the time the TV show ends. He didn't end up going with Priscilla Rainey, but you could see out of all the contestants, she was definitely one of the more drama-filled characters, to say the least.
It seems like the whole mess, the fight, is Priscilla's fault. And that ain't really sitting well with me. You got some girls who
Want me to go home, of course.
want you to go home.
I can't believe everyone's making such a big deal about me cussing out Sierra. She deserved it.
And this quote alone completely foreshadows everything that the game would go through for the next 10 years.
I really like Priscilla, but something just don't feel right.
Something just don't feel right.
Now, while the drama and fighting, the conflict and the fire starting might have been all fake for the sake of the reality TV show, what was definitely not fake were the allegations made against the game after this show had concluded. See, Priscilla Rainey was not chosen to be the winner of the battle for the game's heart, but she won something much bigger. That'll now likely be much smaller. The battle of the game's bank account. Priscilla Rainey sued the game after the show concluded for an incident that had occurred off-set. According to the lawsuit, while filming in Chicago in 2015, the game took Priscilla on an off-camera date at a suburban sports bar. There, the game allegedly assaulted her by repeatedly lifting up her skirt, grabbing her bare buttocks and her privates, and juggling her chest in front of a large crowd of onlookers. At one point during the evening at the sports bar, they were on an elevated stage in full view of all the club goers. With the stage lights shining on them, the game lifted Rainey's skirt and grabbed her bare buttocks and privates. She tried to break away, but he did it again, this time lifting her rear end and exposing, let's just call it, her private parts to the gawking crowd. As Rainey struggled to pull him away and lowered her skirt, he grabbed her bare intimate parts a third time. He also grabbed and juggled her chest for the entertainment of the onlookers. 3 days later, Rainey confronted the game about the assault. The two were on the show's tour bus with the other cast members and a film crew who caught the entire exchange on camera. The video begins with another contestant announcing that Priscilla Rainey had a secret date with the game, which would be considered cheating for the game show, and that the contestant returned to the hotel visibly upset. The game then reminded her that he had instructed her not to mention the private date to anybody, and quote-unquote, don't mention it means don't mention it. From there, a heated argument ensued. Priscilla repeatedly tried to tell him that she had a problem with what happened that night and was bothered by it, and the game angrily commanded her, what you can do is be a woman and shut up, like you can shut up right now. She did not shut up. Instead, she described the assault in graphic detail. And after a heated exchange, the game ordered her, get off this bus before you get your butt strangled, and then threatened to choke her up. In August of 2015, before the show's debut, Priscilla sued the game for battery in federal court in Chicago. But it gets worse, and it was really all the game's fault. He repeatedly evaded court-ordered service and otherwise tried to obstruct and delay the litigation. 5 process servers across 3 states made multiple attempts to serve him with the complaint and summons, and 1 process server alone made 41 unsuccessful attempts to serve the game at his California home. The district judge authorized alternative service. The judge set a settlement conference for June 16, 2016, and ordered both Priscilla and the game to appear in person. On June 2, 2016, the game requested to reschedule the settlement conference, claiming that he had concern for his safety based on Chicago's firearm violence problem. Keep in mind, the court appearance was meant to take place in Chicago, and at the time, the game felt unsafe to travel to Chicago, or at least that's what he told the judge, because again, this is around the time when he's beefing with Lil Durk.
Red rose, white silk.
Red rose.
Because the game kept dodging court, never responded to the lawsuit, and instead denied all allegations, which we'll touch on shortly, Priscilla Rainey, who was demanding $10 million in damages within the lawsuit, wasn't exactly granted the full 10. But the judge did rule against the game by default because he never even responded to the thing to begin with. Instead, he got on Instagram and concocted a very long-winded, hate-fueled rant against Priscilla. And if he'd spend half this amount of time conjuring up his case in court, he might not be potentially homeless and scamming underground artists today. But check out what he had to say in a now-deleted Instagram post. Let's get one thing very clear. That thirsty Gatorade mascot of a TRANS vestite will never see $10 million or anything close to a penny of my money. People think they read a headline in bold print and that it's true. She won a judgment of $10 million. That means that a judge, because I'm overseas, has given this chick a chance to maybe be able to afford a lifetime supply of lace front hair glue if my lawyers don't respond to this suit by the 26th of this month, which they will do tomorrow morning. So as soon as I'm home, me and my lawyers will eat this case like a box of Minion Twinkies on sale at Walmart. VH1 has a separate lawsuit filed against them by this thought bot that they also will win because, number one, this girl's a liar. She has a history of theft, fraud, prostitution, arrests, and a lot of other TRANNY panty activities in her past that make this false claim irrelevant. Don't be fooled by these accusations or the dollar amount in the headlines because I put that on my favorite auntie's poodle. This broad ain't getting $1. Every girl on that show will tell you I never touched this chick or ever desired to be anywhere near her. She got kicked off the show, and as a result, she filed this lame lawsuit, which was probably her intentions before the show even started. She was begging for my attention the entire time we shot the show and was given the ultimate Major League Baseball curveball. So that upset her and made her little wee-wee hard. So she did what all chicks do when life gives her no other options. They sue you. This really is a crying shame. See you in court, Mr. Priscilla Rainey. And I say Mr. because your mustache is probably a bit longer than it was when we taped the show, because it's about to be spring, and that's when mine is usually at its healthiest.
I study
Minion Twinkies
for a living.
Now, it's pretty funny to me that the game goes on to call her Mr. and transvestite, saying she has a mustache, but Again, you gotta remember, this is the same woman who was on his dating show, who he moved forward in the rounds and genuinely considered wifing up, at least for the sake of the show. Now, while the game is out here defending his innocence, Priscilla Rainey is doing the press conference rounds as well, appearing on Power 105 to claim the entire show, the game show, was fabricated, fake. And of all the places she could have gone, ironically, she went to thisis50.com for a sit-down interview. And she detailed, what really went on with this entire situation through her eyes.
Let's clear that up now. I'm not screaming rape. He did not rape me. But what he did do is touch 3 times and told me shut the f up before I eliminate you. And then pulled my up in front of a crowd of people in Chicago at a club with the lights on and people taking pictures. To the point that 3 cameramen walked off set and quit because they got daughters and wives at home and they said he's a piece of...
Now, these are some horrible allegations, and the craziest part is that the game did not take them seriously in the slightest. Again, he evaded court, evaded the lawsuit, treating it basically like it was frivolous or unquestionable that he would ever be found guilty. But after all that ducking and dodging, by November 14th, 2016, the case went to trial, and a jury began hearing both parties' testimonies, finally ruling in Priscilla's favor. In response, the game attempted to sue Viacom, the TV network that hosted his TV show, stating that the show's producers casted Priscilla Rainey despite a doctor's recommendation to exclude her from the program. The doctor reportedly cited Priscilla's past arrest, including for those for aggravated battery, as a reason for her not being mentally stable enough to be a participant of the show. And for those reasons, the game thought he was entitled to $20 million from Viacom, which included the payment he had been ordered to make against Priscilla, as well as an additional $13 million in damages. So essentially, the judge of this case had forced the game to pay Priscilla $7.1 million, primarily because he neglected the case to begin with.
Spicy.
Now, the game was probably not broke by any means, but $7.1 million payout? When you're a California resident, where I believe the tax rate is around 50%, that means he'd have to make about $14 million just to cover that payment. And now think about this, right? This was in 2016. How many projects have we seen from the game since 2016? How many business ventures have we seen him be a part of? How many tours has the game went on since 2016? Maybe I'm not following close enough, but I believe 2016 was when we really saw the game's career kind of slow down, right? Well, we'll touch on that shortly within this video. But you gotta think, unless he has some very serious investments or a lot of cash saved up, his professional and financial endeavors after 2016, when he was forced to pay this woman $7.1 million, did not seem fruitful enough to generate that amount of money in a short period of time. And it likely didn't, because by 2018, the game had requested and been denied a new trial in this S-assault case, with the judge slamming the game for failing to show up to the trial before, claiming that his actions towards Priscilla were deeply reprehensible. And with the denial of a new trial and him being forced to pay $7.1 million no matter what, the judge had forced the game to hand over financial documents to essentially prove or explain why he hasn't, at this point, been able to cough up the $7 million settlement. Priscilla Rainey had filed documents demanding the game turn over his assets and be held in civil contempt for not paying her those $7 million ding-dongs.
Red Rose, white
ding-dongs. She says she's been working with third-party investigators and has proof that the game is hiding millions of dollars of income through different entities that he controls. And because of this, she wants him to speak under oath in court. The game obviously denied the allegations, and Priscilla continuously keeps filing requests to audit the game's financial records. The game loses his $20 million lawsuit against Viacom. Remember, he was suing them because they produced and aired the game's reality show, and they knew that this contestant, Priscilla, had some sort of mental issues and some criminal history in her past, but they chose to ignore it. So he sued them, $20 million. He ends up losing that lawsuit, and Viacom demands that the game cover their legal fees after he brought them to court. So he's just digging himself in bigger and bigger holes here.
Red Rose.
Bigger and bigger holes. Priscilla asks the judge to punish the game for dodging the subpoena that she sent in order to find out how much money he has so that she can finally collect her settlement. And she said that she subpoenaed the rapper's company, his weed company, Trees by Game LLC, to gain more info on all his assets. The company ends up having to give some of the profits to her to settle the $7 million debt. And it got to the point where the game was facing arrest, facing jail time, because he failed to declare his intentions to produce the 7-figure settlement sum that was required of him. Basically, he wasn't telling the courts, telling the judge how he was actually going to cough up this $7 million to Priscilla, so he was facing real jail time. And just a couple weeks after they got his financial documents, when he finally turned them over, in my opinion, this is one of the craziest financial turns of events we've ever seen in hip-hop history, because the judge seizes the game's record label and the royalties of his upcoming album, Born to Rap. So in an attempt to collect her $7 million judgment against the game, Priscilla ended up taking control of the game's entire independent record label, La Prolific. She was granted any and all rights, title, and interest in any money, property, or future payments that were due or owed to the record label, which was set up to release the game's upcoming album in 2019, Born to Rap. And at the time, he was like promoting this album as if it was going to be his magnum opus or his final album ever.
Cap.
Are you paying attention to?
Now looking back 6 years later, we can see why he was trying to build up so much hype for that project. Priscilla had now become the owner of the album. She collected all the royalties that project generated, and even any salary that the game might have been paying himself through his record label, La Prolific. Absolutely insane. So basically, she's telling the judge, like, hey, I think the game is hiding money and I can't get him to cough up his financial records. Gets to the point where the game almost gets arrested for failing to comply with all this stuff. He finally does, I guess, hand over his financial statements. And the judge is like, okay, since I guess he's pretending like he's broke, potentially he's hiding his money, whatever the case is, he's got this independent record label and this weed company. So from now on, because the game owes this woman $7 million, she basically is entitled to all the profits that come in to his record label. So when he releases albums and those albums generate a profit, that's going right into her pocket, allegedly. But it doesn't stop there. So when they were conducting discovery to understand Game's financial situation, how he would, end up being able to cough up all this money to Priscilla, it had been revealed through that discovery that the game owns almost no assets under his own name, but he assigns his interest to receive revenue to his manager, aka WAC 100, WAC 100's company, and other game-old holding companies. Priscilla's lawyer had also accused the game of transferring his home to WAC 100 as a gift. And remember that because it'll play an important role very shortly. Now, over the next few years, Priscilla owning Game's record label, his weed company, that wasn't doing enough to actually put a dent in the $7 million he owes her, right? Because think about it logically, she owned the rights to his record label, his independent record label that was putting out his albums after 2019. Not his old catalog that was actually generating money, but albums like Born to Rap or 2022's Drillmatic. And I mean, it's also notable to think that ever since she started taking ownership of his entire record label, the game hasn't really been putting out that many albums like that.
Red Rose, White.
And if you want a quick run of the numbers, again, there's Drillmatic and Born to Rap. On Spotify combined, both those albums, again, combined, have a total of 312 million streams. Spotify pays around $5,000 on the high end per 1 million streams. So multiply 312 by 5,000, you get $1.5 million. Now, this is before all the money the game has to pay for all the features that were on those projects. It was funny because NBA Youngboy was actually on one of the albums, and WAC 100, the game's manager, had said they paid around $150K alone just for that NBA Youngboy verse, but because the song wasn't performing well, they had to remove the whole thing from the album, I guess, just to, make sure that they didn't lose money, and got their $150K back. So put it into perspective here, right? On the very high end, let's say the album was absolutely free to make. There was no expenses, both those albums. They only earned $1.5 million total. So the game would still owe Priscilla around $5.5 million. So she's trying to get that money, right? And the game, meanwhile, is online, literally continuously saying over the years that he's not going to pay her. But it doesn't matter what he says. It matters what the court says. And the court had actually approved Priscilla collecting the game's assets. So by 2025, she had planned to seize the game's Calabasas home in order to recoup for the lawsuit settlement. It was actually 2024. I made a mistake. Because on October 7th, 2024, the game was scheduled to appear in court to argue against the possible seizure of his home. However, in typical game fashion, of course, he failed to appear in court on that day, but he continued fighting against the potential seizure of his home by asking the court to dismiss the order for sale of the dwelling, and he denied being personally served paperwork about the potential home seizure at all, basically saying like he was never actually subpoenaed to show up to court to argue why his house shouldn't be seized by this woman who he owes $7 million to. Meanwhile, she's accusing the game of transferring his home's deed to, again, WAC 100 to prevent it from being seized.
Red Rose, White Ceiling.
Seized. And throughout this time, in the meantime, the game does interviews where he emphasizes that he's absolutely broke. He said, In a Vlad interview, everything I own is either rented or not in my name. I have not a penny to cough up to the lady who's been chasing me for now almost a decade. I'm broke. I don't have a dime. Well, he does, or I should say did, have a
White ceiling.
Calabasas home. But according to All Hip Hop, in May of 2025, a judge had ordered the sale of the home to cover the $7.13 million judgment owed to Priscilla Rainey. After fighting this long battle for quite some time, Priscilla had calculated that the house should be worth around $3.2 million. Now, it's important to note WAC 100 would go on to deny this, but according to BET.com, his Calabasas home did end up being listed on the market for $4 million, so it looks like he was attempting to sell it. Crazy. And now, 6 months later, he's out here telling up-and-coming artists they can get a discount on a feature. Not just telling them that, going on his Instagram and promoting that he's doing like Black Friday, holiday-type promotions on Versus.
All independent artists from around the world, I don't care where you from, DM the GOAT, get you a motherfucking
Red rose, white ceiling.
And you might still be asking, how is this a scam, right? He wasn't involved in the whole Fat Joe and Benny the Butcher thing where they were charging $600 for mixtape placements that got 60 views. But don't underestimate the vast amount of times that the game has reached out to random underground artists to try and collaborate with them. For a fee, of course. We're going to look at that, but I also want to show you guys what Screwface, who is a rapper himself, had to say about this situation and why it could be a huge red flag for up-and-coming artists to actually get in business with the game with this offer that he's proposing. So Screw said on Twitter, long but important tweet for all artists. Up-and-coming artists, do not pay for this verse. This smells like a very common predatory scam that major artists do. First off, you might not even get the verse, or if you do, it might be a verse that he's already given to 100 different people. Also, he says nothing about clearing the verse, which is another scam major artists do. So you might pay for the verse, actually get it, but not be able to drop it on streaming platforms. Also, the point of getting a game feature is to look like he rocks with you or co-signs you. If we all know he's giving away these for free just like air in a bag, it's not going to mean the same thing, especially if 150 other artists pop up with a game feature at the same time. He most likely won't help you push the song or even acknowledge it. Even if he charges $5,000, which he's probably charging way more than that, you'd be better off dropping a song by yourself and using the $5,000 to buy YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter ads. Invest in yourself because these guys don't give a crap about you until you're popping. So now we've answered 3 important questions here, right? Number 1, why does the game offering discounted verses for up-and-coming artists mean that he's scamming them? Well, as you can see by what Screw said and by the examples with that mixtape placement Benny the Butcher scheme, it's not that it's a scam. It's that there's no value in getting this verse from these artists because they're not actually giving you the cosign or giving you the promotion that you would need to get this song off the ground. We also looked at why would the game possibly be trying to scam for a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 from people who are a lot less wealthy than he is? Well, the game is looking to sell his home because he has to chalk up almost $10 million to a woman who sued him 10 years ago. So why is this a scam? Why would the game be scamming? We answered both those questions, but now we got to look at 2 other important things. And they both root in how the game has been moving over the last, I would say 10 years, since this lawsuit was filed against him. See, remember how I said at the beginning of this video, right? The game used to drop phenomenal projects. So even though he was on some BS sometimes, the antics were often overshadowed by the amazing music. So you would think, even though he has this massive lawsuit against him, all this controversy, horrible allegations made by this woman that the game allegedly assaulted her, right? You would think, he's a great rapper. He had a great career up until that point when she dropped the lawsuit. It's logical that he can continue his career and make enough money where slowly but surely he can pay her off, right? Well, that's the problem. See, the music and the antics started becoming synonymous, the same things. On its 2022 album, Drillmatic, the game devoted a 9-minute song to just barring Eminem to high hell. For no particular reason, wasn't prompted by anything. Well, actually it was prompted by something, we'll touch on that shortly, but the game tried to frame it like, this is hip hop, it's competitive, right? Eminem kind of fell off. I gotta get him back out here active.
When have you ever heard an Eminem song in the club? I don't hear Eminem in the streets. I'm just a better rapper.
This to me would be like if Drake came out the gate dissing Juvenile. Like, obviously the game got his first massive look from Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, that whole Aftermath, Interscope, G-Unit camp. To turn back around and go at their frontliner for what particular reason? None of any validity, seemingly. It'd be like if Drake, who was signed under Wayne, started going after Juvenile, who was another Cash Money veteran, right? Just seems kind of distasteful, like you're insecure your spot. Well, the game most likely was, because the reason I believe he was dissing Eminem stemmed from the fact that earlier that year, Dr. Dre had put together a star-studded Super Bowl performance, including Eminem himself, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, and more. 50 Cent was there hanging backwards off the stage. The only major rapper who came up under Dr. Dre's umbrella who wasn't invited to the Super Bowl halftime show was The Game. And The Game was not happy about this. He went on Drink Champs a couple months later and said that Kanye West, in 2 weeks, did more for The Game's career than Dr. Dre ever did for the 10 years that they worked together on and off, and that The Game was signed to him.
So when I say that Ye did more for me in those last 2 weeks than Dre did my whole career, it's like the conversations I had with Ye, the billionaire mindset that he put me in, the rooms that I walked in. Dre has never put me in those rooms. Absolutely more than Dre's done for me in my career, because I can remember being signed to Aftermath and being damn near broke. Not saying that was Dre's fault, but wasn't putting on to no money.
So there was obviously a lot of saltiness, right? And Dr. Dre probably heard that loud and clear, because when Kendrick put together the probably most legendary West Coast event we've seen in the last decade, the Pop-Out concert, The Game was noticeably missing again. Due to his antics, he's been absent and not invited specifically to a lot of major moments within music because of the bridges he burnt. And it wouldn't be The Game if he didn't go on a massive rant about the Pop-Out show to make himself feel better for not being invited.
And I've been in this motherfucker since 2003, right? Because that's when I got signed to Aftermath, 2003. If you ask anybody, anybody that really know me that's in this motherfucking industry, and go ask Dr. Dre, man. Like, sit Dr. Dre down and really ask that about who I am and my character and, like what he really feel about me at the end of the day as a man. So if you could ask Nip himself, he would have told you, and he did tell you out his own mouth, what, I contributed, to his career. Coming straight out of West Side, Cedar Block, Bompton, and Top Dog know what it is, Kendrick know what it is, Mustard know what it is, Ty Dolla $ign know what it is, Dr. Dre know what it is, Snoop know what it is,
Red Rose, White Ceiling
know what it is.
And there's very few rappers aside from The Game I can think of that have created more enemies within the industry and stirred up more controversy. But one person who obviously comes to mind as probably the frontrunner of controversy is none other than Kanye West. And when Kanye West was going through his most controversial, hate-fueled phase, The Game was standing right beside him, which probably didn't work out too well for him. Because if you remember, Kanye West, through his Yeezy brand, was actually producing Mustache Man Nazi shirts. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think The Game was the only actual rapper or artist or just public figure in general to actually co-sign this and wear the shirt. Now, you can't find any pictures of The Game wearing it, but I saw it on Instagram when it happened. All right, it definitely happened. And you know how I know it definitely happened? Because just a couple months after he wore it, all his concerts in Europe were canceled. Berlin, Vienna, the organizer of those two shows came out and said, "We clearly oppose any form of hate or discrimination. Tickets will be refunded. We apologize, but we were not aware of these circumstances at the time of booking the artist. Otherwise, we wouldn't have hosted this artist in the first place." And The Game didn't take this as a learning opportunity, that maybe he shouldn't spread, hate-fueled symbols or messaging. Instead, he said, "I love a good crash out. What are you going to do if I leave?" Now, let's be fair to The Game, alright, and look at a couple examples of some artists who replied to Screwface John's tweet, where he was basically saying, this isn't worth your money buying a feature from The Game at this point. Because some of these artists actually did buy a feature from The Game, worked with him, and some had positive things to say, some not so much. So this one dude, he said, "I'm independent. I got a verse back from The Game, no issues, even a day ahead of schedule. No pre-used stuff, fresh verse that was on topic of the track. It was cleared. It's been out for years. It did well for me. I can't speak for others, but my experience was 100. Screwface replied saying, "Respectfully, I know this is going to sound like an insult, and it isn't, but I have to say this for any up-and-comer seeing this. Brother, I searched for your song, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Your social media presence kind of shows that you would have been better off not paying for that feature and just promoting your own music, because he clearly didn't help push the song, and it didn't elevate your presence. I'm glad you got the verse, but the point was, it wasn't worth what you paid. If that came across harsh, my bad, I'm just trying to be honest." And the guy said, "No disrespect at all. I appreciate the convo. Here's the link to the song. It did close to 100K streams on Spotify, got some algorithmic bumps, and it also landed on an Apple Music editorial when it dropped back in 2021. Of course, every artist situation is different, but based on what I paid and how it performed across platforms, it did just fine for me. I made my investment back, and it helped bring in new listeners to my catalog. I was only chiming in to share that my experience was straight. Fresh verse, on topic, delivered early, and no clearance issues because we handled the paperwork up front. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think Screw's point ultimately was that, that money that you spent as an up-and-comer on this game verse, when he's not directly promoting it, you're not standing next to him, he's dishing out these features to any artist who wants one, it's not going to make your music stand out or get you to a higher level. There's better ways to actually make your money work for you, like buying ads all throughout social media where you're playing your music and showing it to people who would have otherwise never heard your stuff. I see this all the time on my Instagram. I'll get an ad for just a random song I've never heard, and then I'll go and add it, right? I think you can get much higher reach if you're constantly posting on social media and running ads simultaneously, so new people are seeing your music, then they click on your page, they see you got a bunch of music, a bunch of videos on your socials, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs on you that way than you would by dropping that same amount of money on the game in 2025 rapping on your song. But I understand it. Like, if I was a rapper, from my perspective, I guess you could call me a rapper on the intros of these videos, but like a real full-fledged rapper, the 2006, 2008 me would definitely want a game feature. And if he was charging a reasonable price, like $500, I would probably do it just for the nostalgia factor, right? And to work with a legend. But in terms of this being a real investment into your career, there's much better ways to spend your money. And the game likely knows this, and you have to ask, is his intention really to help out these smaller artists, or is it just to get a bag, right? And he knows what he's delivering won't really provide them the value that they think it will. In that case, this could be perceived as the game taking advantage of some less fortunate artists. Oh, and it looks like that company I spoke to you guys about earlier in this video, the Block 365 that was doing those mixtape placements for Fat Joe and other artists, looks like the game worked with them, because another rapper had replied to Screwface saying that the game had got him for a verse back in COVID for only $200, but other rappers told him that he was charging thousands for them. So it doesn't look like he has a fixed rate here. He was just kind of going off whatever these people could afford. Screwface said, the game got you? And the guy said, yeah, he hit me on Instagram. He said he messed with my music and that him and Block 365 were doing a deal for mixtape promo that he wanted to hop on one of my songs for the low. I talked him down to just $200. So yeah, he's doing negotiations in the DM for mixtape placements. Kind of crazy. There's a whole lot of artists and producers working with Block 365 running game, no pun intended. The Benny the Butcher, Fat Joe, Bow Wow, even DMX, rest in peace. This is, again, the company we were talking about earlier in this video. Fat Joe and Bow Wow hit me months later, and I was like, no, sir, not this time. If you do some research, there's a lot of people that got by them. And then he showed that Fat Joe reached out to him, likely, again, that company, Block 365, just using Fat Joe's account to target up-and-coming artists. And someone, whoever was writing on Fat Joe's account, said, yo, I see you worked with the game. I could see you got a dope sound, man. What's up? So it looks like this kind of whole, operation stretched out to, like, if one artist, like the game, was working with the Block company and they were getting smaller artists to pay them for mixtape placements, then other artists would then reach out to that same up-and-coming artist and be like, yo, I heard the game worked with you. You want to work? Kind of a weird cycle going on here. But I think these are two examples of, it actually working in the artist's favor. They got what they wanted. They paid for a feature. They got the feature, no problems, no strings attached. They were able to clear it and actually get it onto streaming platforms. But it didn't work that way with every up-and-comer that the game reached out to. And these weird situations made it all the way to France. A rapper by the name of Jamie had been offered a feature from the game for $500, but when he did his research and realized some of these features didn't pan out the way that the artist probably expected, he actually ended up flipping it on the game, sent him a photoshopped PayPal screenshot so it looked like he actually did send the money when he didn't, and he ended up getting threats sent to him by the game's team, where they allegedly threatened to get his account shut down or banned. But by far the worst situation to come out of this entire, the game, asking young artists for features debacle, comes from an artist by the name of Lil Uly Took. Now, there's this YouTube channel called Twisted Society. I'm going to play you guys a little clip of their video documenting the situation. They did a great job at breaking the whole thing down. I'll leave a link to their video as well in the description so you guys can check it out. But yeah, this is an absolutely absurd situation, which shows that, it's one thing if you're doing this with just a couple artists, if you're selective with with the amount of features you do for these up and comers, you know, because then it really means something to these guys, right? Like if you're not doing features left and right, it's one thing, but when you're just asking anybody for any price to do any sort of verse without any real guarantee that you're going to put your stamp behind it, your brand behind it, that it could even get cleared 100%, then this stuff comes off as very predatory. Again, like you're taking advantage of these guys who are just maybe starstruck by seeing you in their DMs.
The game scamming, and he ended up scamming another artist that I've actually previously worked with before, known as Lil Uzi Took. He has a bit of a buzz going on right now, and it seems like the game also noticed that because he immediately hops in the DM saying, "Where you from? I see you working." He says, "Broward County. Thanks, I appreciate the love. I fuck with your music too." For a couple days, that's all there really is. A nice little interaction between two artists, an OG in the game reaching out to a young buck and telling him that he appreciates the work that he's putting in. But 6 days later, Lil Uzi Took decides to take a shot and immediately asks the game if he wants to do a song. "Yo, what's up, game? I've been grinding. I got my connections to succeed. I bring good work ethic to the table. I'm very strategic with all my releases and marketing game plans. I know my career will elevate regardless. Currently, I'm not very profitable, but my career has been rising steadily, and with your help, I know I can be better. I like to set up a meeting if there's anything you can do to get me to the next level." And honestly, I feel like he's selling himself pretty well here. Usually I wouldn't recommend reaching out to bigger artists and asking them something like this, but since the game ended up reaching out to him first, I feel like there is a chance he might answer. And the game actually ends up responding saying, "You already know I'm always looking for artists to help promote and find real talent, you know? So if you're down, let's do something." He said, "Let me know when and where, and I'm here. That's my number." He then goes on to send him an open verse as well as a small snippet so the game can listen to what the song sounds like and see if he really wants to jump on it. He responds to that by saying, "What's your budget, G?" And he says, "I got 4K right now, let me know." 4K, I mean, I definitely think that is worth it for a game verse, but that's definitely a lot of money. The game then responds by saying, "I got you with a feature for 4K, real low, let me know, got you, G, usually more, but fuck it, I got you if you're ready today." And low-key, that's a bit of a red flag right there. I feel like when artists say, "Oh, I usually charge more, but for you, I'm gonna do less," it means they're not really getting that many features bought on the daily. I feel like this is a tactic that a lot of artists use to basically make the other artists feel pressured into buying the feature. They're like, "Yo, you know what? Usually I charge 10K, but today I'm feeling really friendly, so for you, only 4K, but you absolutely have to buy it today." Because if they give you a couple days to decide, you might talk yourself out of it, but by doing it this way, it basically becomes a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "Oh my god, I love the game, I grew up listening to him, and this is my one chance to get on a song for him for a reasonable price. If I pass up on this today, then I'll never get the chance to make a song with him ever again." He then responds by saying, "Wow, thanks. Can we shoot the music video? I'll book a flight today. What's your preferred payment method? Let's get the feature out the way first, G. One step at a time. Zelle or Cash App on the payment. Let's do Zelle." So immediately Uli's trying to get that music video, which I think is a very good idea because after all, getting a simple verse from the game definitely won't do too much for you, but if you get the whole music video with him, that definitely could open some doors. But as you can see, the game is a little bit apprehensive and is immediately wanting that money. He goes on to send a Zelle, says, "Send screenshot when you're done and your number. Can we do PayPal? I don't use PayPal, G. That's great, I'll do Zelle." And that's immediately another red flag because after all, if you use PayPal, you might be able to get your money back, but with Zelle, I don't think you can. He says, "Alright, G, send screenshot of payment. Bet, I'll send tonight. I thought you was ready, G. I'm ready. The cash is in the safe. I'm making moves right now. As soon as I'm at the crib, I'll deposit it and send it. Definitely by today. I bet." And then the game starts to get a little bit impatient and he ends up responding a couple hours later saying, "What's good, G? I got you in 2 hours, no cap. My bad. I've been hella busy." For supposedly rich and very popular rapper, he definitely seems to be pretty antsy about getting that $4,000. I'm not really saying anything here, but it's definitely a little bit sus. And then 2 hours later, the game starts to get upset by saying, "Let's go. Yes, sir. On the way to deposit the cash right now. Yo, what's your Cash App? Zelle has a maximum limit I can spend." He then sends his Cash App and says, "Screenshot the payment when you're done for records along with your phone." He then goes on to send a couple more opens as well as sending the screenshot proving that he sent $4,000 to the game for that feature. Oh my god, that's a lot of money. The game then responds by saying, "What's your Cash App name?" He says, "Payment sent," and beat and verse links are above. He then goes on to send his name. He responds by saying, "Send song with open verse MP3 form to my Gmail. Put your IG name and subject and 8 bars. What's your number?" He then shows his number and the game says, "Send this to me. Feature, IG name, email, number." The game then goes on to say, "Send this here, G." He says, "My engineer is adding the beat to the verse right now." Alright, G. He sends all this information. "Let me know when you send the email, G. The engineer said he'll need another 30 minutes. He on the way to the stew right now." "Okay, let me know." 30 minutes later, the song is complete. He sends it to the game. The game says locked in, G, and everything seems good. And Uli Took even ends up tagging the game on his story but doesn't get a response. And then after that, an entire 20 days go by. On August 1st, he says, "Yo, not to rush you, just wanted an update on the feature. When you think it's gonna be ready. 5 days after that, let me know." And well, you know the story by now. He goes ghost, no response. He ended up seeing that story post, but after that, he never sees any more of the messages, and he never gets him his money back. He never gets him the song, and he took over $4,000 from Uli Took. Now, could this have been a misunderstanding? Possibly. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that it's not.
So yeah, all in all, this situation is absolutely cooked. As I was doing research for this video, I realized there was another instance of the game potentially scamming, and it actually answered a lot of questions for me because I had always wondered as like a younger kid in high school or whatever, why the game never did a concert in my hometown in Canada. I mean, growing up, we had like Rick Ross here, D.I., Jeezy was supposed to come, but there was a shooting outside the venue. People from the generation before the game, I mean, I just saw 50 Cent like 2 years ago. Nas and Wu-Tang were here recently. Back when the game was, you know, still a big rapper, you had a bunch of other rappers who were smaller than him, like Kid Cudi, Big Sean, Meek Mill. There's been a bunch of rappers who were able to come to Canada, no problems. The game has never been here, at least when I was growing up, and I realized, allegedly, it's because he actually scammed a rapper by the name of JB way back in the day. Basically, the song that JB had sent the game, that he paid the game for a feature for, contained a Michael Jackson sample, so there was some clearance issues there. But the game ended up using the song, taking the artist who paid him for a feature off of the song, took JB off the song, and put it on one of the game's own mixtapes. And apparently, according to Friday from We Love Hip Hop, the game has not been to Toronto ever since this incident and actually reached out to that same rapper recently because now he's looking again to do features with up-and-coming Canadian artists and asked the guy again for a feature. And when the guy, JB, texted the game back like, oh, why don't I just book a Canada tour for you instead? Implying, the game might have some issues coming to Canada. You could tell it was like some AI or someone managing and running games DMs because the game just immediately goes back to start talking about features, doesn't even acknowledge the guy's message. So someone is running the game's Instagram to try and milk as many features as they could possibly get.
I'm looking to do 5 features with Canadian artists. Only 5. DM me if you're ready. It reminded me right away of the story of JB. What ended up happening is they took JB off of the song. It's his song that he got the game to feature on. He paid him money for it. They took JB off of the song, and Game had it with just his Black Wall Street guy that he was with at the time on the song. And he put it on a mixtape. Like, you took the man off of his own song. He has not been on Toronto soil since. However, this going on with the game right now, he hit up other people. He hit him up and said, yo, let's work. Recently. Yesterday. Says, salute, my G. Can you cross the border? Let me book a Canada tour for you guys. Like, let me get you on tour. And then this is his response. Right here is hard. Let's talk about it, about me doing a remix on it. Or let's do a fresh feature on a song you have done already. That's not released yet. Or posted in and I'll post it in my stories. So the man asked him about one thing, and the response is a canned response like, yo, let's do a feature. It's AI game. Yes.
And I mean, I would ask you guys, why does the game seem so desperate to collaborate with these up-and-comers who he's not even giving real cosigns to? It's not like he's starting some sort of label. He's just looking to dish out features left and right. But we probably know the answer to this, right? Again, the game is trying to figure out a way to avoid this $7.1 million court-ordered settlement that he has to cough up to Priscilla Rainey. With his recent album selling 20K in the first week, I'm not sure how quickly he's going to be able to do that. With him getting banned in certain areas of Europe due to him hanging out with Kanye and wearing Mustache Man sweaters, I'm not sure how he's going to tour his way out of this. With him grilling up-and-coming artists in the DM to do features and the world catching on that this might not be the great opportunity that he's advertising it as, I'm not sure how he's going to make back this money. But that's none of my business. It's just sad to see as a massive fan of the game, someone who was once running the West Coast is now running from accountability. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.